The great chamber of the Galactic Council was filled with voices, every species speaking at once, their eyes locked on the human ambassador who stood at the center. He was a tall man in a dark uniform, his face tired but proud, and his hands gripped the podium as if he already knew what was coming. The council had gathered to decide Earth's fate, and the judgment was not mercy. "Humans are reckless," shouted a scaled alien with golden eyes. "They bring war to every border they touch," another voice hissed. "They are not fit for the stars. Exile them, cast them out. Let them rot on their primitive world." The crowd of alien diplomats murmured, some nodding, others whispering, and in the middle of it all, the human ambassador stood silent, his heart heavy but his eyes unbroken. When the speaker of the council rose, silence fell like a blade. The speaker's long robe swept across the floor. His voice carried to every corner of the chamber. "Earth has ignored warnings. Earth has refused our laws. Earth will no longer sit in this chamber from this day. Humanity is exiled from the council." The words struck like thunder, and a storm of cheers and cruel laughter followed. The human ambassador clenched his jaw. He wanted to shout back. He wanted to remind them of the times humans had stood shoulder to shoulder with alien allies, fighting pirates, saving colonies from famine. He wanted to remind them of human sacrifices in council wars. But he knew it was useless. The decision had already been made, so instead, he straightened his back and said only one sentence, his voice low but strong: "You will regret this." Then he walked out of the chamber, leaving behind mocking jeers and hateful stares. News of exile reached Earth faster than light. It spread through colonies, outposts, and stations. At first there was shock. People could not believe the council would push humanity out so completely. Trade routes would close. Alien technology would be cut off. Even diplomatic protections were stripped away. Earth was naked before the galaxy, and many feared ruin. But inside Earth's halls of power, another fire was rising in underground bunkers. In hidden bases, in secret meetings, leaders whispered to one another, "If the council will not accept us, then we will not bow. If they call us warmongers, then let them see what humanity can truly build." Generals, engineers, and scientists began sketching designs no alien had ever imagined. Ships larger than cities, cannons that could split asteroids, engines that could outrun light itself. The first steps were not easy. Resources were scarce. Humans had relied on council trade for rare metals, but they learned to mine deeper into Earth, to strip asteroids bare, to turn even ocean floors into hidden factories. The people united in a way never seen before. Rival nations dropped their grudges. Corporations handed over their wealth. Even ordinary farmers and miners offered their strength, for they all knew survival meant more than food or money. It meant building something powerful enough to stand against the galaxy. Children grew up hearing the story of exile. They learned that their parents had been called unworthy, that humanity had been mocked and pushed aside, and in their young hearts burned anger and pride. Workers labored without sleep, welding steel deep beneath the oceans, where alien spies could not see. Pilots trained in hidden deserts, flying old fighters until their hands bled. Scientists rewrote the laws of physics, pushing past every limit, and day by day, the shape of something new began to form. In the darkness of the Pacific Trench, a vast shipyard stirred to life. Machines hummed, sparks lit the water, and the hull of a massive vessel rose slowly from the depths. It was the first of its kind, a ship built by human hands alone, not borrowed from alien designs, not gifted by council allies, but created in secret from the bones of Earth itself. Its name whispered through hidden channels, the Titan. While Earth prepared, alien spies reported back to the council. "The humans are restless," they warned. "They are building something, we cannot see it. But we hear whispers of engines, of weapons, of ships the size of mountains," but the council laughed. "Humans are primitives," one elder sneered. "They cannot match our technology. Let them waste their efforts. Their world will starve before it fights." Yet deep in their hearts, a seed of fear had begun to grow. The human ambassador returned home, and when he stepped onto Earth's soil, he was met not with sorrow but with fire. Crowds cheered his defiance, leaders saluted him, and children lifted banners that read, "Exile is not the end. It is the beginning." He raised his hand. His voice carried across the world. "They wanted us broken, but we are not broken. They wanted us silent, but we will roar. They wanted us weak, but we will rise stronger than ever before." And as his word spread, people began to believe. Ships were still only skeletons in hidden docks. Weapons were still only blueprints, but already, humanity's destiny was changing. Exile had not chained them. It had freed them. No longer bound by alien laws, no longer slowed by endless council debates, they were alone. And being alone gave them something dangerous, freedom. Far above Earth, stars shimmered cold and endless. They had once seemed distant, controlled by others, but now they looked different. Now they looked like a battlefield waiting to be claimed. Humanity had been exiled, but they were not afraid. Deep in their bones, they knew this was only the first step. And somewhere in the shadows, engines were awakening, ships were rising, and a storm was coming. Beneath the dark waves of the Pacific Ocean, machines roared in secret, their echoes swallowed by the depths. Hidden far from alien eyes, the first human shipyards were alive with fire and steel. Engineers worked in silence, their faces lit by sparks, their hands steady even as exhaustion burned in their bones. This was not just labor. This was defiance. The Council believed humanity would crumble without trade, without technology. But they underestimated the stubborn spirit of Earth. The exile had not killed them. It had united them. Nations that once fought over borders now shared blueprints. Rivals who once argued over power now poured resources into one cause. Even civilians lined up to help, their sweat and blood becoming part of the secret Armada. In the deepest chamber of the Pacific shipyard, the skeleton of the Titan loomed larger than any vessel Earth had ever built. It stretched across scaffolds, its steel ribs gleaming like the bones of some ancient beast. Welders climbed over its frame like ants, sealing plates thicker than mountain stone. Each spark of their torches was a promise. Each bolt driven was revenge hammered into steel. The shipyards were not only in the oceans and the asteroid belt. Hollowed-out rocks became forges in deserts, underground hangars filled with the roar of engines. In mountains, caverns lit with blue fire as reactors were tested. Everywhere humans could hide, they built. They trained, they prepared. The galaxy had pushed them aside, but now Earth was shaping weapons that would make even the stars tremble. Children who once dreamed of becoming doctors or merchants now dreamed of becoming pilots. Young men and women signed up to train in simulators so old they rattled and smoked. Yet every mistake they made, every crash, every burn taught them lessons. Soon they could fly blind, navigate storms, and fight without fear. Farmers left fields to become gunners. Miners who once dug coal now drilled into asteroids for titanium and rare metals. Humanity was reshaping itself into an army. The Council did not see it, their arrogance blinded them. Spies sent to Earth returned with scraps of rumors but no proof. Humans were careful. They built underwater, underground, behind magnetic shields that blocked scans. When aliens looked at Earth, they saw nothing but a struggling world. Factories going dark, resources being drained. They laughed and said, "The humans are eating themselves alive." But the truth was different. Earth was feeding the fire of a sleeping giant. On a stormy night, a group of young recruits stood on a hidden dock, staring at the half-complete form of the Titan, their hearts pounded with pride. One of them whispered, "Will she really fly?" The instructor, an old pilot with scars on his face, answered, "She will not only fly, she will make the stars remember our name." The recruits said nothing, but their eyes burned with the same fire that had spread across the planet. The first test engines shook the seas, whales scattered, schools of fish fled, and deep beneath the waves, turbines screamed like thunder. The ocean boiled with bubbles as the Titan's heart beat for the first time. The roar traveled through the hull, rattling every bolt, every panel until finally it stabilized. Silence fell and then cheers erupted. The engineers embraced. Tears rolled down faces stained with grease and sweat. For the first time since exile, hope felt real. But hope was not enough. Ships alone could not save Earth, they needed weapons. Cannons that could pierce alien shields, torpedoes that could outrun interceptors, and armor strong enough to take punishment from fleets larger than theirs. Human scientists worked in secrecy, pushing limits. They built railguns that could throw metal faster than light flashes. They designed missile swarms guided by AI minds small enough to hide inside a chip. They created drones that could fly through the wreckage of battle and strike again. Resources grew scarce, people rationed food. Cities dimmed their lights to save energy for the shipyards, yet no one complained. Mothers told children bedtime stories about the ships rising from the deep. Fathers whispered promises that one day humanity would never bow again. Sacrifice became pride. Hunger became strength, and the entire planet became one beating heart, focused only on survival and vengeance. Rumors began to leak. Alien smugglers whispered in spaceports about strange human activity. about convoys of ore vanishing into the void, about ships that never returned. The council dismissed it as human desperation, but some voices in the chamber grew uneasy. One counselor whispered, "If they are building, we should strike now, before it is too late." But the majority laughed. "They cannot build what we have built in millennia. Let them dream, it will end in ashes." Still, unease lingered like smoke. On Earth, the whispers of spies did not stop the work. Instead, the shipyards built faster. New designs rolled out: smaller destroyers, agile frigates, carriers capable of launching swarms of fighters. Each vessel carried names etched into their hulls. Names of the fallen, names of colonies abandoned, names of those who had died believing humanity could be more. Each ship was a monument, each ship a weapon. One night, as the Titan was nearing completion, the human ambassador who had been cast out of the council stood at the edge of the dry dock. He placed his hand on the cold steel of the hull and he whispered, "They wanted to bury us, but we are seeds and now we rise." Behind him, engineers saluted, workers cheered, and deep in the dark waters, engines stirred again. The galaxy did not yet know it, but the age of silence was ending. Humanity had been quiet, building in shadows. But soon the stars would hear the roar of engines and the thunder of cannons. Soon the council would see the truth. Exile had not broken Earth, it had forged an armada, and the first spark was ready to ignite. The cold void of space stretched endless and silent, but tonight it would burn. A lone human freighter drifted near the edges of Europa's orbit, its hull patched with scars, its engines coughing weak blue light. On the outside it looked weak, tired, harmless, but hidden deep within its cargo bay sat a secret. Crates filled not with grain or ore, but with tracking beacons and hidden drones. It was bait and the trap was already set. From the shadows, 3 council patrol cruisers slid into view, their sleek silver hulls gleaming, their weapons glowing faintly. The alien commander hailed the freighter, his voice filled with smugness. "Earth vessel by council order. You are to cut engines and prepare to be boarded. Your planet is exiled. You have no rights here." The human captain kept his face calm, but inside his chest his heart pounded. He gave no answer, only silence. The cruisers drew closer, their weapons arming. One fired a warning shot, a streak of light cutting across the freighter's hull. The human captain whispered into his comms, "Now!" And at that moment the void tore open. From the darkness behind Jupiter's shadow, the massive silhouette of the Titan emerged. Her engines thundered. Her cannons glowed like suns. She was not yet perfect. Her hull still bore marks of rushed construction, but she was alive and she was ready. The alien commander froze, his golden eyes wide. "Impossible," he hissed. "The humans cannot build such a ship." But it was no illusion. The Titan's presence filled every scanner. Its size dwarfed the patrol cruisers. Its hull bristled with railguns, missile silos, and hangar bays humming with fighters waiting to launch. For the first time, the council ships knew fear. The Titan's captain gave the order, "Target weapons. Fire at will." The first railgun blast split the silence. A lance of steel accelerated faster than light itself. It slammed through the nearest cruiser's shields like paper, tearing a hole straight through the ship. Explosions rippled along its spine, and within seconds, the mighty alien vessel was nothing but fire and twisted debris. The second cruiser panicked, turning hard, trying to escape. But a swarm of missiles streaked after it, their trails burning bright. Guided by artificial minds that never missed, the cruiser's defenses flared, lasers cutting down some. But too many slipped through. Explosions tore its engines apart. The ship spun helplessly, venting atmosphere, then shattered into pieces. The last cruiser stood frozen, its commander unable to choose between fleeing and fighting. But the Titan did not wait. Its fighters launched, dozens of small craft streaking forward like angry sparks. They swarmed the cruiser, cannons blazing, tearing at its shields. The human freighter, once bait, now lit up with hidden weapons firing from its hull. The council ship screamed under the assault, and within minutes silence returned. Only wreckage remained. The battle was short, brutal, and final. The void now glittered with burning fragments. The Titan's crew stood silent at first, stunned by what they had just done. Then cheers erupted across the ship. Humans had faced the Council's warships and not only survived, they had won. The message spread like fire. Smugglers whispered it in spaceports. Traders told it in back alleys. Miners on distant moons repeated it over cheap radios. The humans have a warship, bigger than any Council cruiser, and it killed 3 in minutes. Some laughed in disbelief. Others grew pale with dread, but all of them listened. Inside the council chamber, the news hit like a thunderclap. One counselor slammed his claws on the table. "It is a lie, propaganda. The humans cannot do this," another counselor, her voice trembling, answered. "We saw the wreckage, we cannot deny it. They have built something new." Panic rippled through the chamber, but pride and arrogance still choked their voices. "So they built one ship," the speaker sneered. "Let them have their toy. One ship cannot fight the galaxy," but even as he spoke, reports trickled in. Whispers of other vessels under construction, whispers of human shipyards hidden in oceans and asteroids, whispers of fleets rising from the shadows. The council laughed in public. But behind closed doors they grew restless. If humans could build one Titan, what would stop them from building 1,000 back on Earth? The victory at Europa lit a fire brighter than any sun. Families gathered in the streets when the broadcasts arrived, showing the Titan's silhouette towering over the wreckage of alien cruisers. Cheers and tears filled the air. Children waved flags. Old soldiers saluted with trembling hands. And everywhere people whispered the same words: "We are not weak, we are not broken. We are rising." The Titan returned to her hidden docks, scarred but unbowed. Engineers swarmed over her hull, repairing damage, upgrading weapons, making her stronger, faster, deadlier. She was no longer just a ship. She was a symbol, proof that exile had not chained humanity but sharpened it. Her name spread like thunder across the stars at night. Deep within the command chamber of Earth's High Council, the human ambassador who had once stood humiliated in the Galactic Council now stood tall before the leaders of Earth, his voice steady. "They thought exile was punishment, but exile has freed us. They will try again, harder, stronger, and next time, they will not underestimate us, so we must be ready. We must build more." Around him, generals nodded, engineers nodded. Even ordinary workers standing in the room nodded. Beyond the stars, alien mercenaries began to take interest. Some asked quietly if they could join the humans. Others simply waited, watching, wondering if perhaps Earth was the new rising power. The galaxy had laughed at humanity, but laughter was fading, replaced by unease, replaced by fear. And so the first sparks of war had been lit. The Titan's guns had spoken, and the galaxy was listening. Soon the void would not be silent. Soon fleets would gather, and the council would face a storm they had never imagined. Exile had been their sentence, but war would become humanity's answer. The oceans of Earth hid giants. Beneath the waves, steel beasts were rising, one after another. Massive hulls broke free from their secret docks, their forms black against the moonlit waters. They were not fishing vessels. They were not cargo ships. They were warships. Humanity's answer to exile. The Titan had already proven the galaxy wrong. But Earth knew one ship could not win a war. So the shipyards worked without rest, from the Pacific to the Atlantic, from hollowed mountains to the far belt of asteroids. Every hidden forge pounded metal into something greater. The Armada, on the first morning of the reveal, citizens of Earth gathered along coastlines. At first the water was calm, but then the sea split open. Waves heaved as a colossal shadow rose. People gasped as the second Titan-class dreadnought breached the surface, its cannons gleaming, its decks bristling with fighters. Then another rose beside it, and then another. The horizon became a wall of steel. Children cheered, old men wept. Mothers held their sons tighter. For now Earth had more than hope, it had power. In deserts, airfields thundered as fleets of fighters launched into the sky. Their wings sharp, their engines howling in orbit. Hidden carriers deployed swarms of drones that danced like a storm of fireflies. In asteroid fields, destroyers ran drills, weaving through rocks as if they were born to the void. The Armada was not a dream anymore, it was alive. Inside the command chambers of Earth, maps of the galaxy flickered with red and blue lights. Every day, new ships were added to the roster. Frigates, destroyers, cruisers, carriers, dreadnoughts, each one named after battles, after fallen heroes, after the pain of exile. Names like Defiance, Liberty, Vengeance, Dawn, names that carried weight, names that spoke of destiny. The people paid the price, energy was rationed, cities dimmed their lights. Food was scarce, but no one complained. Every ration slip was a bullet. Every dimmed street was fuel for a reactor. Every sacrifice became pride. School children carved drawings of warships into their desks. Songs were written about the Armada. Poems whispered about the day Earth would no longer bow. Alien spies crept close, their sensors straining. But Earth's defenses grew sharper. Orbital satellites blocked scans. False transmissions lured enemy eyes away. What little the Council learned terrified them. Fleets were growing, faster than their estimates. Larger than their expectations, the whispers reached the chamber of the council, and cracks began to show. One counselor hissed, "They build too quickly. They should not have this strength," another spat. "Strike them now, while we still can." But others shook their heads. "No, their fleet is still young, untested. Let them overreach. They will fall by their own hand." Arrogance blinded them. Fear gnawed at them, but still they delayed on Earth. Parades were held in secret. Families hidden in underground bases watched through screens as the Armada lined up for inspection. Massive carriers floated side by side, their decks gleaming under floodlights. Destroyers circled them like wolves. Fighters launched in formation, leaving streaks of fire across the dark sky. The display was for the people, but also for the galaxy. Proof that humanity was no longer in chains. Training was brutal. Recruits woke before dawn, running drills until their legs shook. Pilots learned to fly blind through storms of static. Gunners practiced until they could reload in darkness with bleeding hands. Mistakes were punished, but every punishment forged them harder. No one was spared, because no one could afford to be weak, and yet, the Armada was not only made of weapons, it was made of people. Friendships formed in the steel corridors of carriers. Laughter echoed in barracks even as alarms screamed. Men and women carried letters from loved ones, tucked in their uniforms, whispers of home that reminded them why they fought. Humanity's strength was not only in its machines, but in its heart. One night, the Titan and her new sister ship, the Leviathan, sailed together into orbit. Their shadows stretched across the stars. Crews stood at attention on their decks, and a voice boomed across every channel. The ambassador who had once been humiliated now spoke with fire. "They cast us out, but we are not broken. They called us primitive, but now we rule the void. They will come for us, make no mistake, but we will not bow, we will not kneel. We will meet them in the stars." The words were carried across every ship, and a roar answered him, a roar of thousands of voices. But beyond the cheering, danger loomed. Scouts returned with whispers of fleets moving at the edge of human space. The Council was gathering, not in small patrols this time, but in legions. Earth knew the storm was coming. Yet fear did not spread, only determination. Engineers pushed harder, shipyards burned brighter. The Armada must be ready. It was no longer about survival. It was about destiny. Exile had been the wound. The Armada was the scar. Proof that humanity could not only endure but rise. In the darkness of the command chamber, lights flickered across the star map, glowing lines of human fleets expanding outward, and at the edge, red markers of Council fleets drawing near. The stage was set, the Armada had risen, and the galaxy was watching. The silence before battle was heavier than any storm. At the edge of Europa, stars flickered cold. Fleets waited. Tension grew so sharp it could cut on one side. Earth's new Armada gathered in formation. Dreadnoughts and carriers lined like steel mountains. Destroyers and frigates swarmed like wolves around them on the other side. The Council's coalition fleet appeared in a wall of silver light. Hundreds of warships, each one sleek and deadly, their weapons glowing in the dark. The Council commander, a veteran with scales like polished stone, raised his hand. His voice rang through his fleet. "This is the day humans are broken. This is the day their rebellion ends." Cheers answered him, for the Council still believed their numbers made them invincible, still believed humanity was only a shadow scratching at their door. On the Titan's bridge, Captain Marlowe stood tall, his uniform torn from long hours of war, his eyes calm but burning. Beside him, officers whispered reports. "Enemy fleet outnumbers us 3-1. Another said, "Our fighters are ready, missiles primed." Marlowe nodded once, his voice firm. "Then let them come. We did not build this Armada to hide, across every human ship." The order spread, crews strapped in, cannons charged, missiles armed, hearts pounded. The first move came swift. A swarm of Council fighters shot forward, sleek silver arrows streaking across the void. Earth's carriers opened their bays, and human fighters roared out, engines blazing blue fire. The two swarms collided in a storm of light. Lasers and bullets cut through the dark. Explosions bloomed like dying stars. Pilots screamed orders and curses. Ships twisted, dodged, and burned. The void became a graveyard of fire. Then the heavy guns spoke. The Council's cruisers fired their beams. Lances of searing light slashed into human shields. Sparks cascaded, armor plates cracked. But Earth's warships answered. The Titan's railguns fired. Massive slugs tearing through the void. One Council cruiser was split in two. Another spun helplessly as missiles struck its engines. The Armada fought with fury. Every shot was revenge for exile. Every explosion a message. Humanity had come to claim the stars. On the deck of the Leviathan, gunners reloaded under fire, their arms shaking but their eyes steady. Torpedoes fired in waves, ripping holes through alien destroyers. The Eclipse drones swarmed, tiny machines darting between ships, planting charges, detonating in blinding flashes. The Council's numerical advantage was real, but humans fought like cornered beasts, and beasts fight hardest when trapped. The battle dragged into hours, the void filled with debris. Ships collided, flames devoured wreckage, and still both sides pressed. The Council commander snarled, "Press them harder! They are breaking." But when his sensors scanned, he saw the Titan still standing, her cannons burning. Her fighters swarming, she would not fall. In the middle of chaos, a human freighter, small, almost forgotten, charged forward. Its hull glowing from impacts, it rammed into a Council battleship. Engines flaring in one final burst. The explosion lit the battlefield brighter than a sun, both ships torn apart. Human sacrifice buying a moment of silence. That silence gave Earth's destroyers the opening they needed. They swarmed through the gap, cutting into the Council line, turning order into chaos. Still, the cost was terrible. Human ships fell one by one, names painted on their hulls vanishing in fire. The Defiance, shattered by a barrage, the Dawn, torn apart by beams. Crews died screaming but never begged for mercy. Their deaths only sharpened the will of the living. For every ship that fell, another surged forward. For every voice silenced, 1,000 roared louder. From the Titan's bridge, Captain Marlowe gave the order, "All guns full fire, burn them down." The Titan's cannons unleashed a storm. Every railgun, every missile, every drone struck at once. The void trembled. Council ships staggered. Some fled, some died, their formation broke. The coalition that had mocked humanity now scattered like frightened prey. In the Council chamber far away, alarms blared. Reports screamed across the floor. "We are losing ships. Their Armada holds the line," one counselor shrieked. "This is impossible. Humans are primitives," another whispered, his voice cold with dread. "They are primitives no longer." The chamber fell into chaos, fear creeping into their bones. Back on Earth, when the transmissions arrived, families crowded into darkened rooms to watch. They saw their sons and daughters fighting, ships exploding, but they also saw victory. They saw the Armada hold. They saw the Council flee, and they cheered, even as tears streamed down their faces, pride and sorrow mixing as one. When the battle ended, silence returned to the stars. Wreckage floated endlessly, broken ships both human and alien alike. But the Armada still stood, battered, scarred, but alive. The Titan floated at the front, her hull torn but her cannons still burning. She was proof that humanity could not only fight but win. On her deck, Captain Marlowe whispered, his voice carried through the comms. "Today they tried to end us. Today they learned we are not prey, we are not weak. Today they saw what exile has made of us." Across the Armada, voices answered in thunder, cheers echoing through steel walls, fists pounding consoles. Humanity had faced the Council and survived, but survival was only the beginning. The Council would return, stronger, angrier, and the war had only begun. The Armada's scars were deep, but they were also marks of pride, proof that exile had not broken Earth, it had forged it into a weapon. And so the clash of the Council became legend. The first true battle of the Armada, a story whispered in every colony, a warning in every alien port. Humanity had been exiled, but now they were writing their return in fire and steel. Fear is a quiet thing. It does not roar like cannons or blaze like missiles. It seeps into hearts, it twists whispers into warnings, it makes empires doubt their strength. After the Battle of Europa, fear began to spread across the stars. The Council had told its people that humans were beaten, that exile was the end. But wreckage drifting across Europa told another story. Council cruisers torn apart, patrol fleets scattered, human warships standing proud. No speech could erase the truth. Merchants whispered in spaceports, smugglers carried rumors, miners in the belt passed stories by radio. The humans have an armada. They killed the Council fleet. They are rising in distant colonies. Aliens gathered in secret. Some spoke with awe. Perhaps humans should lead, others with dread. If they could do this after exile, what will they become tomorrow? The fear spread faster than light, because it was more than rumor. It was belief. Inside the Council chamber, cracks deepened. Counselors screamed at one another. One slammed his fist. Strike now, burn their worlds. End them before they spread further. Another hissed. You said they could not build ships, and yet they did. You said they could not fight, and yet they won. How many lies must we swallow? But pride is stubborn. Arrogance blinds, the speaker still sneered. They are only humans, their victory was chance. We are still the Council, and the Council rules the stars. Yet even as he spoke, reports piled up. Small alien fleets refusing orders, mercenaries leaving their contracts, traders vanishing with their cargo and reappearing near Earth, drawn to whispers of wealth and protection. The galaxy had lived under the Council's rule for millennia, but now it saw another option. On Earth, the Armada grew larger, faster, stronger. Shipyards pounded day and night. Dreadnoughts rolled out of the oceans. Carriers rose from desert sands. Destroyers slipped free from asteroids. Each ship added to the fire, but each also drained resources. Food lines stretched long. Energy was rationed until cities lived in darkness. Still, no one broke because everyone believed. Everyone carried the same wound, exile, and the same answer. The Armada, in the hidden command room beneath the Andes, maps glowed with red and blue lines. Generals studied reports. Admiral Reyes pointed at the screen. The Council gathers again, but slower this time. Hesitation weakens them. Beside her, the human ambassador, his face lined with age but lit with pride, whispered, They fear us now, good. Fear is a weapon. Let us sharpen it. The Armada's newest creation was not a ship but a shadow. Project Eclipse, whispered only in silence. It was built in the deepest cavern of Luna, shielded by rock and false transmissions. Even most humans did not know its true shape, only its purpose, a weapon so massive it could end fleets. So powerful it could break fortresses. When alien spies learned fragments of the name, they shivered. The humans build a monster, they warned. The Titan and the Leviathan patrolled together, their hulls scarred from Europa but proud. Alongside them, cruisers and frigates followed like wolves beside lions. Every day they trained. Drills that tore ships apart and built them again. Pilots flew until they passed out. Gunners fired until their arms bled. Mistakes meant death, and death meant lessons learned. By the time the next battle came, there would be no mistakes. The galaxy watched. Fear mixing with fascination, alien mercenaries approached in secret. Some offered their services. We will fight for the humans, they pay in honor. Not just in coin. Others defected outright, their ships repainted with human banners. It shocked the Council, it humiliated them, but it could not be stopped in marketplaces on distant moons. Mothers told their children, be careful, or the humans will come. And yet some children whispered back, I hope they do. The Council had ruled with arrogance, with chains of law and punishment. Humans offered something else, not mercy perhaps, but fire. And fire drew those who were tired of the cold. On Earth, families still sacrificed. But they no longer sacrificed only from fear. They sacrificed with pride, knowing every scrap of food given up fed the fleet. Every candle lit in darkness was a star in the Armada's sky. Humanity was no longer only surviving. It was inspiring, but the Council was not idle. In secret they gathered their greatest admirals, their most ancient fleets and their most terrible weapons. They whispered plans of striking at the heart of Earth, of crushing the Armada before Project Eclipse could be revealed. Fear did not make them weak. Fear made them desperate, and desperation breeds war. The humans knew they had spies of their own now, and in the command chamber Admiral Reyes looked at her captains, her voice cold but steady. They will come again, stronger than before. They will come for our world, so we must show them that exile gave us more than pain. It gave us unity, it gave us fire, and it gave us the will to rule. Silence followed. Then voices rose, one by one. For Earth. For the Armada. In the dark void beyond Mars. Project Eclipse stirred for the first time, its engines glowing faintly. A silhouette so massive it blotted stars, unseen by the Council. Unseen by the galaxy, it drifted silently, waiting for its day. The Council still thought exile was their punishment. They had not yet realized it was humanity's gift, for exile had forged steel from weakness, fire from sorrow, and now fear had spread, not only in alien hearts but across the stars themselves. The universe was beginning to whisper a truth the Council could not silence. Humanity was coming. The Council capital system was a fortress of light, a place no enemy had ever dared to strike. Its skies were filled with fleets, its planets circled by defense stations. its moons armed with cannons that could split meteors. For millennia the Council had ruled here, believing no power could ever challenge them. But that belief was about to shatter. The Armada had gathered. More ships than Earth had ever dared to dream. Dreadnoughts and carriers stretched in rows. Destroyers and frigates prowled at their sides. Fighters hummed in hangars like hornets in a nest at the front, scarred but unbroken. The Titan and the Leviathan led, their cannons primed, their banners gleaming. Behind them, a shadow larger than all others drifted into view. Project Eclipse, the monster born of exile. Its hull so vast it seemed a floating city. Its engines glowing with a light that painted the void. On the Titan's bridge, Captain Marlowe's face was grim. His hands steady around him, officers whispered, "Enemy numbers. Overwhelming, defenses layered, their fleets ready." Marlowe's voice cut through the fear. "Good. Let them be ready. Today we carve our place in the stars. Today the Council learns exile was their mistake." Across the Armada his words spread, and a roar of voices answered, "For Earth." For the Armada, the Council's admirals watched from their command fortress. Their voices filled with disbelief. "Impossible. They cannot have built so many ships, they cannot have come here." But denial could not erase the truth glowing on their screens. Earth's Armada filled the void, and for the first time in 1,000 years, the Council was not the hunter but the hunted. The first shot came from the humans. A railgun slug from the Titan, it ripped across the void. Smashing into a defense station, shields flared, cracked, and broke. The explosion lit the skies of the Council capital like a false sunrise. And then the void erupted. Missiles streaked. Beams flared, fighters roared, the final siege had begun. Council fleet surged forward. Waves of silver ships forming a wall, their cannons blazing. Their fighters swarming, they struck hard, shattering 2 human destroyers in moments. Debris spiraled into the dark. But the Armada pressed. Dreadnoughts thundered. Carriers unleashed storms of drones. Frigates darted between enemy lines, stabbing again and again. Humanity fought not with grace but with fury. Every shot, every blow driven by the wound of exile. The Eclipse moved last, its engines shuttering the void. Its cannons bigger than cities, its shadow blotting out stars. When it fired, the universe seemed to pause. A beam of searing white tore through the battlefield, smashing into the Council's largest fortress. Shields flared blue, held for a heartbeat, then collapsed. The fortress cracked, split, and erupted, pieces scattering like broken crowns. Silence followed, then panic. Voices screamed across Council channels. The humans have a superweapon. Nothing can stop them. On the capital planet below, citizens stared at the sky in horror, watching fire streak across their heavens. For centuries they had believed themselves untouchable. Now they saw their shields fall, their fleets burn, their Council tremble. Fear became terror. Still, the battle was not easy. The Council had numbers. Waves of cruisers smashed into the Armada. Human frigates died holding the line. Carriers bled fighters. Dreadnoughts shuddered under impacts. Names painted on hulls were erased in fire. The Vengeance gone, the Dawn shattered. Yet each loss only hardened the survivors. They pressed forward, closer, always closer. In the command fortress, the Council speaker's voice cracked. "Retreat. Call them back. We cannot hold." But the admirals knew retreat would mean collapse. They fought on, desperate, pouring ships into the slaughter. But desperation could not change destiny. On the Titan, alarms screamed, smoke-filled corridors. Crews fought fires as hard as they fought enemies. But Marlowe stood firm, his voice unbroken. "Keep firing." Push them back. His gunners obeyed, their hands blistered, their arms trembling, but still they fired. Railguns spat steel, missiles streaked, cannons thundered. The Titan's roar echoing through the stars. Then the Eclipse fired again. Another fortress shattered. A Council dreadnought broke apart. Its wreckage raining fire, the battlefield tilted. Human ships pressed harder. Enemy formations cracked, panic spread like wildfire. The Council's fleets began to collapse. From Earth's command chambers, Admiral Reyes watched through trembling hands, her voice whispering, "We are doing it by the stars. We are truly doing it." Around her, officers cheered, workers wept. Humanity had struck the heart of the galaxy and was winning. The final blow came not from the Eclipse but from a single frigate, the Resolve, small and battered, its engines failing. Its captain saw an opening, saw the enemy flagship exposed. He gave the order, "All power to engines." "Ram them!" The ship screamed forward, flames pouring from its hull. It slammed into the Council flagship, detonating in a burst so bright it blinded sensors. When the light cleared, The Council's command ship was gone. Their fleets broken, their order shattered. Silence fell at last. Wreckage floated endless, fire burned slow. The Armada stood battered but victorious. The Titan scarred, the Leviathan burning, the Eclipse drifting but alive. Humanity had not only survived, it had conquered. The Council's capital lay defenseless, its fleets shattered, its leaders trembling. In the Council chamber, the speaker knelt, his voice broken. "Spare us," he whispered, "mercy." But on the Titan's bridge, Captain Marlowe's voice was cold as steel. "You exiled us, you mocked us, you tried to break us. Now you will bow across the Armada." Voices rose in thunder. For Earth, for the Armada, the final siege was over. The Council had fallen, and humanity stood in their place. No longer exiled, no longer scorned, they were rulers now, their banners rising over alien skies, their ships patrolling the stars. The age of man had begun. The smoke of battle still drifted in the void. Wreckage floated like broken stars, silent reminders of the war that had ended an age. The Council's fleets were gone, their fortresses shattered, their capital scarred and trembling, and standing in the center of that silence was Earth's Armada. Scarred, battered, but alive. Humanity had done the impossible. They had torn down the rulers of the galaxy. Across every human ship, exhausted crews stood at their posts. Some wept quietly, others shouted in triumph. On the Titan's bridge, Captain Marlowe looked at the wreckage with heavy eyes. Victory was theirs, but the cost was carved into his soul. Too many ships lost. Too many names erased in fire, he whispered. They will be remembered. And his officers bowed their heads. The Eclipse drifted like a sleeping giant, its weapons cooling, its vast hull scarred from the siege. It had proven itself a monster, a symbol of Earth's new power, and now it floated silent, a shadow over the Council capital, its presence alone enough to remind the galaxy that humanity had risen. On the Council's homeworld, streets filled with silence. Alien citizens looked to the skies where once proud fleets had guarded them. Now those skies were filled with human warships, banners bearing the crest of Earth unfurled above captured stations. Drones patrolled through the air. The age of Council dominance was gone, replaced by the iron shadow of humanity. The surviving Council leaders were brought to stand before Earth's commanders. They trembled, their robes torn, their crowns meaningless. The speaker's voice cracked as he begged. "Spare us, we will submit, we will obey." Admiral Reyes, watching from Earth's command chambers, gave the order that echoed across the stars. "Kneel." And so they did. The rulers of millennia bent their heads before those they had once mocked. Back on Earth, the news spread faster than light. Children in darkened cities cheered as screens lit up with images of human banners flying over alien capitals. Families who had given their food and warmth for the Armada wept with pride. Miners on the belt raised their fists. Farmers in empty fields shouted to the skies, "We did it." The exile that had once been a curse was now remembered as the spark of destiny. But victory brought new weight in the hidden council of Earth's leaders. Debates thundered. Some voices cried for mercy. "We suffered under the council's arrogance. Let us not become the same," others demanded domination. "We bled for this, we lost everything, we must rule with iron, or we will fall again." Silence fell when the human ambassador, the man once humiliated in exile, stood, his voice heavy. "We are at a crossroad. We can be tyrants or we can be guardians. The stars will remember us either way." The Armada patrolled, ships spread across conquered systems. Frigates hunted the last resistance, carriers hovered above alien skies. Dreadnoughts floated as symbols of power. Everywhere they went, fear followed, but also hope in some colonies. Aliens raised banners of Earth willingly, welcoming their new rulers. In others, they whispered quietly, waiting to see if humanity's rule meant chains or freedom. On the Titan, Captain Marlowe gathered his crew, his voice soft but strong. "We did not fight only to survive. We fought so that humanity would never bow again. But power is dangerous. It can burn us as easily as it burns them. We must carry this burden carefully." His words spread among officers, then among fleets, planting seeds of thought in the fire of triumph. In the shadow of Luna, new shipyards already hammered steel. More warships were being built, larger, faster, deadlier. Earth knew the Council might not rise again, but others would, far beyond the rim of known space. New empires watched. New eyes studied the rise of mankind. Whispers carried across the void. The humans are coming. On alien worlds, children now played at being humans, strapping scraps of metal to their arms, pretending to fire railguns, shouting, "For Earth, for the Armada." Even those who feared humanity could not deny it. The age of the Council was finished. The age of man had begun, still in quiet chambers. Earth's leaders wrestled with choices. Would they rule as tyrants, forcing submission with fire, or would they lead with strength and justice, guiding the galaxy into something new? No answer was yet clear. Only one truth was certain. The stars now belonged to humanity. At night, above Earth's skies, the Titan drifted in orbit, her lights glowing like a guardian, her scars a reminder of battles fought, her cannon silent for now but ready. Children pointed at her silhouette and whispered, "She kept us safe, she gave us the stars, and so exile." Once seen as ruin became legend. Earth had been cast out, mocked, broken. But from that wound came fire, from that fire came steel, and from that steel came an armada that shook the galaxy. The Council had fallen. The banners of Earth now flew where none had believed they could. Humanity was no longer the exile. No longer the outcast, they were rulers of the stars.